Navigating through the energies of New Earth is not an easy process and can become extremely overwhelming at times. As we all ascend into higher frequencies, we're all being guided to embrace our own unique divine pathway, a pathway created in the vibration of love. Join Vibe Nation radio host, international psychic medium Carrie Turcotte, as she guides her listeners to rediscover themselves by accessing the keys of knowledge that already exist within. Each week's show is divinely orchestrated to intertwine with the universal energies, allowing the listeners to go deeper within and understand the message being shared even greater. When you live in the frequency of love, there is no competition, so Carrie will be joined regularly by fellow soul family members who will bring forth wisdom and knowledge she knows should be shared on a global level. At the end of each show, Carrie will tap into the energies of the listeners to see what message Spirit wants to share with all those listening in for the upcoming week. If you really want to get to know who you truly are, come and join us now on Vibe Nation Radio, here on the IOM Radio Network.
Well, as many of you know, we are celebrating Indian summer here on Carrie's radio program. So I am your host, Chris Anderson One Feather, and today I have an interesting guest with me who looks at astrology through a slightly different lens. So Stephen Hubble has been doing his astrology thing for quite a while now, and he's really developed a very unique perspective. So without doing any further ado here, Stephen, how are you doing out there on the West Coast today?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thanks for that introduction.
Yeah, it was kind of one of those fumbly ones. For some reason, this morning has been a little bit backed up, but so your particular type of astrology, looking at the heavens from a little bit different angle, how has that happened? How has that evolved over the last few years? Where did you start out, and where do you perceive yourself to be at now?
Oh, that's a really big question, so I'll go ahead and try to condense it the best that I can. But I started off with astrology when I had a series of, I guess you could call, awakening experiences. When I ended up taking a break from going to college and started having some big spiritual awakening experiences where I just had this experience of basically God coming into my awareness and showing me that there was more to the picture than I was making it out to be, with going to school and all of that. And so that brought me back to living with my mom again, and I was building up what I was going to do next with my life. And at that time, I was just trying to explore as much as I could, trying to make sense of basically having my mind blown wide open and trying to reintroduce a new way of looking at the world and understanding myself and the people around me in a way that made more sense, in a way that was clearer. And as I started to notice a lot of archetypes repeating themselves over and over, certain patterns in people repeating themselves more and more, I started thinking, maybe there's something going on here. Maybe, the jig is up a little bit kind of attitude is what I had with it. So I started looking up things that would help to explain this. And with all the different relationships that I've had with people in my life, I noticed that there were these key patterns, that, like certain traits that people were exemplifying, that were very consistent across the board. And the other side of this was that I also noticed that at different times during the year, different seasons, different energies would come into play in our environment with our collective consciousness. And so as soon as I found astrology, I'm not sure how I found it actually. I kind of found it on a website, and I just started talking to people about it more. It was always sort of there lingering in my awareness, but I didn't fully get into it until this point. I was probably about 20 years old, and I'm 26 now. So found it about 6 years ago, and I just started exploring a website in which you, Chris, were a part of the website as well. I forget what it's called now, but it was very much based on soul astrology, and it was very much geared toward astrology for the individual and helping people to understand their personalities and their life paths better. And so the more that I started looking into it, I started going, wow, this really clicks with me. This really resonates. And I started applying it right away to my loved ones, my family members, my friends, and started going, wow, this really makes sense. I'm really seeing some personality traits across the board with, I noticed my mom's an Aquarian and my dad's a Scorpio, and both my brothers are Scorpios, and my sun sign's Scorpio as well. So I started noticing, these things are really syncing up with the way our personalities have expressed throughout our family lives. And that was really exciting to me because it gave me an understanding for why we had worked the way we did, why we had the dynamics we did in our relationships. And so I thought this would be a great thing to apply in my life for understanding relationships and having better relationships in general.
Mm-hmm. So it was a process of trying to understand the world you inhabited by looking at the exterior world and seeing if you could associate patterns and cycles and movements of planetary influences that kind of pushed you in this direction.
That's absolutely correct, yeah. And I noticed that the more that I could understand those patterns in the relationships, the less judgment I would naturally have towards people, the more I would be accepting and compassionate towards those people, because instead of being like, oh, I don't get why this person acts this way, I could have a sense of this like bird's eye perspective. And I have an Aquarian moon as well. So I have this sense of looking at things and seeing them I can have this way of being detached about things and looking at it from more of this all-encompassing viewpoint. And the more I could do that, the more I could just let all my relationships be what they are instead of trying to push them into, the box I thought that they should be in.
Right. So then as you begin to go deeper and deeper into the exploration of astrology, at some point you obviously started to realize that what you were viewing was really not something that was an exterior phenomenon. In other words, it's not just about planets floating through the heavens, but there was something going on an interior level. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. Where I eventually came to it and where I am now with it, from pursuing the study of A Course in Miracles and just through, I believe, the evolution of my consciousness, I started to see that really, all this is coming from our internal reality. All this is coming from our minds, ultimately. And so seeing that there are planets spinning through space out there around the sun, really that's an optical illusion of sorts. Really it's happening all within me, within all of us. And so in that sense, we all contain all of the signs, we all contain all of the planets, and those differentiations are really only meaningful at a surface level to an extent.
Mm-hmm. So as you're working on applying this in a productive and useful way with people that come to you with questions, what is the first thing that you focus on when you're looking at a chart and talking about, what's happening with people's lives?
That's a great question. Well, the first thing I like to focus on is something that people will be familiar with, something that can kind of establish a bridge of common ground between myself and the other person. And so what most people know in terms of astrology is their sun sign, because they associate that with their sense of identity, in that it's the date that they're born. So that's a very common piece of astrology that people know. It's just their sun sign, like, oh, you were born July 21st, or, whatever it is. I'm born October 26th, so that's Scorpio time. And I like to go ahead and start with the sun sign because it gives you that sort of general personality, the core sun sign identity of someone's personality. But then I try to follow it up right away to say, hey, well, there's so much more to you, though, than just the sun sign. We have all these other planets going on here, too. So...
So as kind of a segue into it, you begin with the position of their natal sun, and are you giving them an expanded vision of what's going on with that? In other words, helping them to understand that this is perhaps just, again, a single lifetime in a journey of many lifetimes, and it's not the totality of who you are?
Again, that's a great question. I always try to, if I don't fit it in right during the sun sign part, I do try to fit that in at some point during the session. I try to let people know that this is the ego definition we're talking about, and not the entirety of their being. Even within a lifetime, I just find that, people are so vast. Everyone is so vast, and there's so much that's left to sort of the mystery of people. Like, there's a whole universe to discover within just even one person. And so to kind of deduce all of that down to a natal chart is, it can feel very limiting. But there's also a vast amount of information to be found in the natal chart.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say is the most important part of the natal chart, apart from the sun sign?
Well, I like to specialize in what I have themed for myself as the sun dragon, which is going on commercial.
Yes, we are in commercial.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Have you been searching for a perspective beyond the mainstream? Check it out. Join your hosts Cielito Pascual and Diana Gold Holland on Share International Radio for thought-provoking views behind the news, Sundays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio. You can also find us at shareontheairradio.org. This may be the message of hope you've been waiting for.
How to be a great dad in 15 seconds. Bike ride, go fish, walk in the park, phone call, milkshake, play catch, picnic, fly a kite, tell jokes, laugh, talk, read a story, tell a story, bumper car, swing set, bowling, pillow fight, cut loose, stay tight. Whew. Because the smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
And we are back with Stephen Hubble and talking about astrology. And as we were cut off there with the break, we were talking about what it is beyond just the sun sign that you look at next in a chart. So do you want to continue with that, Stephen?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's really hard to simplify it too much because, I mean, everything in the chart can be used as valuable information to deliver to someone. But as I was saying before, I focus on what I call the sun dragon, which is just simply my name for combining the sun sign with the north node and south node of the chart. And there's a whole mythology associated with the north node and south node, and that the north node is the head of a dragon, or I believe in the Indian culture. And there's this idea of this asura, in the myth, was seeking to swallow the sun and the moon and, drink the nectar of immortality, and was seeking to expand in this, like, really powerful way by, swallowing the sun and the moon. So what the myth goes, I believe, is that Shiva had cut off the head of this asura, or this dragon. And so that's why I call it the sun dragon, because it really seems to encompass this idea of our life purpose. The north node is about our life purpose, the way we're going to expand through this lifetime. And the south node is that body, or the tail of the dragon, which is like our karmic, I guess you could say, our karmic container, or what's familiar to us, what we brought in from past lives. And so I really like to focus on those because people seem to be very interested in their life purpose, their life path. And I also tie in the sun sign because it's that sense of identity in the physical form. It's that sense of vitality. And so when you combine all those together, you have a really potent mixture for where you're headed with this life.
Mm-hmm. And when you are talking to people, are you finding that they're that when you look at a chart and give them the information that you're aware of in how the chart reads, are you finding that people, number one, get excited about it, and number two, they validate you in that there's a sense of, this information is correct. It feels familiar. It feels like something that I can relate to.
Yes, I do gather that at times. I mean, sometimes people will make edits to what I'm saying, and that's totally welcome, of course. They're like making edits in terms of the way that they would frame it. But overall, what my viewpoint is that when I've noticed with people and looking around with people, the people I've known in my family and in all my relationships, that it's really observable that you see these traits start to shine through, and you see like almost like this circuit of energy pulsing forward, driving them forward in their life.
Very interesting. Now, how about applying it to prediction? I know a lot of astrologers are out there with a daily forecast of what to expect from the activity of the planets. Do you get into a lot of prediction? Is that a big thing for you?
I predict things energetically, but not so much specifically in terms of specific concrete physical events. I can if I'm, if someone really wants to know about a certain topic, then that does tend to happen from time to time, that people are seeking answers, what's going to happen at this time or whatnot. And what I do is I start general, though. I start with the energy, because the planetary movements are really telling us what tendencies we're going to see, what kind of tendencies and energy. And I try not to go too specific unless it's requested. And the reason for that is I like to keep things nice and fluid, and so that we can always have multiple perspectives on something.
Mm-hmm. And, there is a certain amount of fatalism in the whole idea of astrology. Do you buy into the idea that everything that you experience in life is fated and that you're pretty much a victim of these events? Or do you look at astrology from a different perspective and see it as being much more open-ended?
That's a great question. I actually do play with that idea a lot. In terms of fate, I do think that there are things that we loosely have probably agreed to before coming in, probably from a higher self or oversoul perspective. We make certain contracts or agreements that we want to uphold coming into this lifetime. And it's just like you would pick classrooms to take when you're going to school. Like before starting your freshman year of college or whatnot, you choose the classes you want to take. But then once you get to school, how you decide to take that class and how you show up and how you take the notes or how you learn the lessons, that's all up to you in the present moment. And so I'm kind of a mixture of the two, the idea of maybe of fate and free will in a sense, in the sense that I do think that there is a script that's loosely held that's occurring, but then we can change our perspective, how we show up with that to varying degrees, pretty much unlimited.
Mm-hmm. So when somebody comes to you and they're, let's say, going through a serious relationship meltdown, and they've got a lot of rhetoric around, my partner did this, and, he said, she said, all of that stuff. Do you try to focus on resolving the relationship so they can continue to move forward, or is it a thing of more likely perhaps this is all over and it's time to move on? What generally comes up for you around that idea of how to handle relationships and whether to pursue it or move on from it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when two people are in a relationship and if they're struggling, well, the first thing I'll do is, before getting into all that idea of like how if they should continue it or whatnot, before even touching any of that, I try to go into looking at both of their charts and helping to deliver all the insight I can. I want to give them the biggest picture I can for themselves so that they can ultimately make their own decision. I don't really make it up to myself to decide what they should do. I just try to give as much helpful information as I can for them to make the decisions themselves, because I don't really feel like it's my place to tell someone what they should do. I just want to make sure that they're as informed as they can be when they're deciding.
Very good.
But then, when I draw out that big picture for them, I also want to, feel it out intuitively. And if I'm intuitively feeling that maybe their souls have finished that lesson, or they're finishing up that relationship, or if it's something that they feel like they should just keep pursuing, I try to let my intuition do the talking and then try to gently guide them if I'm getting that kind of message. But it's rare that I would ever get a message like you should break up or you should stay together. I just always try to point the power back to them.
Right. So basically, you're seeing it as a situation where it's not locked into, an inevitable outcome, that they can still resolve whatever it is that's going on, not necessarily between the two of them, but within themselves, that is creating the tension between the two of them.
Yeah. I mean, really, the tension is going on internally, and so I try to bring light to that. I guess you could say the more cause of what's happening, rather than the surface level symptoms that are going on between the two people in the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Now, if somebody came to you with this would be kind of an interesting question. If somebody came to you with questions about a future child, let's say that a couple or a woman is curious about whether they are going to have a child and what that child is going to be like, because maybe they're a little bit nervous about the idea of pregnancy or bringing somebody into the world, how would you approach that? How would you forecast things around events like birth and death and things of of that huge level of impact in our human lives?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I mean, these questions are all great because these are the exact kinds of things that people tend to bring up when it comes to astrology. They want to know about challenging circumstances like that. So I'll address that question that you just asked. In terms of childbirth, so in terms of if they wanted to know more about what the baby would be like or what that personality would be like and things like that, I would simply get the information for when the baby's due date is going to be, and we'll pick back up.
Free your mind with OMTimes Radio, IOM FM. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Eros Evolution is where sexuality and spirituality meets. Join me, clinical sexologist Martha Tara Lee, on Eros Evolution on Thursdays, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
When Dad needed help getting around, I became his driver. Soon enough, it was up to me to be his housekeeper and financial manager, too. When he moved in, I became his cook and even his nurse. But no matter what roles I play, I know I'm still his daughter.
We understand the roles you play. So to help, we created aarp.org/caregiving, where you can connect with experts and other caregivers. Visit aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
And we are back with Stephen Hubble and looking at ideas around becoming a parent and whether that's a good idea or a bad idea, and how he would respond with questions of that type from people that he would be counseling.
Yeah, sure. So I would get the due date for if someone was pregnant with a child and was curious about the child's nature before they were born, and I would just get this expected date of birth. And, it would probably be might be difficult to get the time of birth because it hasn't happened. But you can also use the location with astrology. Now, that's something I haven't played with a whole lot in terms of just doing purely location times. But I have used, of course, the location of birth with every natal chart I do, and that's always a part of it. So that factors in a lot with the ascendant sign and with the houses in the chart. And overall, though, if I can just get the date and the location, then that can also already start to give me quite a good picture of the natal chart, even though it won't give me the ascending sign and the houses without the time. And so from just that information alone, though, and starting to see where the planets are going to be placed and where the sun's going to be placed into the signs, it can start to give me information about the way the child will probably tend to express themselves, will probably turn out to express just coming into the world. And the astrology of the natal chart also gives me a sense of how they'll progress through the world. So it isn't static. It's always in a constant flux of movement and change. And I encourage everyone to see it as a movement of progression and evolution, because, you know, each of the, I believe that if we're going to use astrology as a tool, we should look at it in terms of how each of the planets are assisting us to grow up, to mature, to become bigger love in the world. And we all have unique ways of going about that.
Mm-hmm. So you wouldn't necessarily look at the parent's chart then and put a lot of attention on whether or not this parent has, you know, the capabilities of being a parent, and whether or not there were circumstances in the chart that would indicate, you know, how they were going to be able to cope with having a child, that sort of thing.
No, I could absolutely look at the parent's chart. A lot of it is intuitive. So when someone comes to me with a request, if they're just wanting to focus on the child, I can do that. And if they're wanting to look at both of their charts, I can do that as well. For the sake of being thorough, it's probably best to look at everyone's chart involved, just so that I can gain like the fullest understanding possible of the relationship between the parent and the child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's also a certain element of destiny, because we, or at least from my perspective in astrology, we do choose our place and time and circumstance that we are born into. And so that's why, you know, if you have a good parent, it was because you had elected to have a good parent in one lifetime. If you have, you know, Godzilla for a parent, then evidently you were supposed to be learning some harsh lessons at that point. So, again, the idea of expanding the concept of astrology comes up in my mind around the idea of incorporating the movement of the planets into your own consciousness, that it's happening inside your own mind, and your mind is out-picturing it, putting it out there as being something that's going on outside of you as a specific individual. Is that pretty much where you've arrived at with your interpretation of astrology, and do you want to elaborate on that idea at all?
Yeah, yes, I agree. That's exactly where I've arrived as well. And I would say that, well, I've done some study of Joseph Campbell and the idea of using symbols. Richard Bach as well, he talks a bit about symbols of dreams and symbols in your waking life and things like that being helpful for understanding your level of consciousness and the way your mind's working. So the way I view all the planets, and really we could start to get really abstract with this, but I'll try to keep it focused on astrology. With all the planets, they're symbolic representations within our own consciousness. And so if you look at it like that, everything starts to become a lot more fluid. Instead of seeing it like they're just these concrete objects in space, which is one perspective, you can also look at them as like these massive energy forms or thought forms within our own mind, within our own energy field. And so if you can look at it like that in a more fluid way, you can start to see it sort of like looking into a mirror and seeing this holographic universe in front of you where you're going, oh, well, Neptune's in Pisces right now. What does that mean about what I'm choosing? I chose to experience this time period on planet Earth when Neptune would be transiting Pisces. So that means that I'm going to play with how that's going to affect me. How am I going to choose to utilize that time period? So it starts to become like this, playful arena, is the way I see it, of where we can start to play with our perspectives like Play-Doh, and, just constantly evolve.
Very good. Well, kind of shifting gears from talking about the type of readings and your, I guess you could say, perception, belief systems around reading. Let's take a look at what's going on in the heavens right now, because we are, going through interesting times. The sun is at that place where America was born, at about 11 degrees Cancer, 12 degrees Cancer, and a lot of different things are happening in the interaction of the planets, the sun, and the moon. So what do you think is the most significant thing that's happening right now as far as planetary interaction?
Well, as you just said, I mean, we're going through this. The day of 4th of July is coming up here soon. So, in that sense, there's sort of like an energetic template that was set at that time, like an energetic. Feels like almost like we're on this sort of continuum of when our country started, and now look at where we are now. Like, look at where we are today with our current president being Donald Trump, and a lot of people feel very confused right now, very afraid, very upset, and really not sure what's going to happen next. So, I mean, planetarily speaking, like, I feel like just the fact that the sun, as you said, is in the same position as it was when America started, it's a symbol of kind of hitting back, like that place of like, this is where we are yet again, from the beginning of our country. And it's sort of like an opportunity to create something new if we want. Like, what direction are we heading in? What's going to happen? What are we deciding for ourselves collectively?
Yeah, it is interesting that, the sun is positioned in trine to Neptune. And the last time Neptune was in Pisces would have been back at the beginning of the Civil War, an area where there was huge amounts of conflict and, the need to reinvent our idea of what our nation was. So do you see Neptune as having a similar impact right now in this current cycle that we're moving through?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I wasn't alive, I mean, at least in this incarnation, last time Neptune was in Pisces, because Neptune takes just so long to make a full revolution around the wheel. But as far as what you just said, the energy of the time, I mean, Neptune being in Pisces is, Neptune is the ruler of Pisces. So in a sense, it's where Neptune likes to be placed. But in a sense, it's kind of like an overdose of Pisces energy for us. So it can kind of make this very kind of almost too fluid, almost like too dreamy and just like a space where we're not really sure where to get our solid footing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely, whenever Neptune moves through Pisces, it definitely gives us a lot of, I guess, that opportunity to recognize that virtually everything we believe to be real is subject to change, is highly mutable and ephemeral, but it's going to float away just like a dream. Like you said, it's a very dreamy planet. Well, we've also got some other interesting things happening in the skies right now, and one of the things that I keep looking at is the movement of Uranus. Uranus is at the 28th degree of Aries right now, which, a lot of us have been waiting a long time for Uranus to kind of move along from Aries into Taurus. So what are you seeing as far as Uranus winding up its journey in Aries and flipping over into Taurus before too much longer?
Well, I always think Uranus is it's like the curveball of our solar system. I mean, Uranus is that wildly unpredictable planet, very eccentric, very outside the box, very otherworldly kind of planet. And since it's been in Aries all this time, it's kind of just because Aries is our sense of individuality, the sense of leadership or pioneering in the world. So Uranus has really given us collectively this edge of eccentric leadership, like this sense of like totally out of left field kind of pioneering energy, where it's like everyone's kind of baffled as to what's happening. Like, why is our leadership like compass so wacky right now? Like, why does it seem so off? And I think that because when planets sort of reach the last degrees, well, we'll pick up.
Right.
Bringing you the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio, your conscious lifestyle on steroids. Being a radio host on IOM-FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
Dr. Kevin here, and I want to invite you every Thursday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, to join me on the Dr. Kevin Show, where we have a diversity of guests who help you step outside the box, behind the curtain, and see what a load of crap is going on in the world today, so you have more information with which to make better decisions. We'll see you there. Namaste.
Hello, I'm John Lithgow. Manatees are unique, among the most amazing animals on Earth, but they're endangered. We pose the greatest threat to their survival. Many manatees are killed or injured by boats or other recreational activities. I'm a writer of children's books, including one about manatees, and I believe education is the key. You can be part of the solution. Please contact Save the Manatee Club right now. Call 1-800-432-JOIN. Thank you.
And we are back, and I'm talking to Stephen Hubble about astrology, and I just asked him about this progression that's coming up about a year from now when Uranus moves into Taurus. And Uranus has been in the sign of Aries for a number of years, and it has been having a little bit of a confrontational posture with, especially with Pluto, as well as with a few other planets that have been moving in and out of the influence of Uranus. But So, in addition to moving out of that zone of the ram trying to butt its head through a brick wall and establish leadership, what do you think is going to happen when Uranus jumps into that sign of money and, you know, all of those things about personal possessions?
Well, I think things are definitely going to start moving more in that area than once Uranus moves there, because Uranus is sort of like a whirlwind of energy. Uranus has more of that airy, it's a giant gas planet, so it's one of those planets that's just very spacious and airy, and that's why it's, you know, it's the ruler of Aquarius as well. So it's just to give you an idea, it's such an out there kind of planet. So moving into the sign of Taurus is likely to bring about some big, probably changes we can't even fully predict because of the unpredictable nature in the area of money, material possessions, you know, physical possessions. So interesting.
So it's going to probably revolutionize a lot of our thinking about money and how we're using money and what the core essence of money actually is.
Oh, absolutely, and probably give us some new insights on money, on how we relate to it.
Mm-hmm. And how about good old Jupiter bouncing around in Libra? What do you see going on with Jupiter in Libra and its progression here as far as how it's interacting with the other planets? It's, you know, ultimately going to come up and oppose that Uranus in Aries, but it's also, you know, having an impact on squaring and trining other signs. So what's your sense of what the immediate future, the next 6 months, holds with the advance of Jupiter?
Well, in the next 6 months, I mean, Jupiter will be transitioning over to Scorpio at some point in that time. But as far as just where he is now in Libra, I mean, Jupiter has really been amping up that idea of the fun and the joyousness of our relationships and wanting to expand upon our relationships and sort of, you know, even though Jupiter is exalted in Libra, it's not always comfortable for us. if we've been kind of living alone or been kind of isolated in ourselves, Jupiter being in Libra kind of really gives us that push into forming more relationships with people.
Mm-hmm. So expanding our social situations and that sort of thing?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, all kinds of relationships, too. It could be a business relationship. It could be family relationships, you know, and Jupiter he's that big jovial kind of planet. So he's kind of, in a way, Jupiter is, you know, he's considered one of the kings of the gods. He's the king of the gods. He's the ruler of the skies, the heavens. And so, in a way, he's that sense of joyousness that's just like showing us where our joyousness is, what to enjoy, and to remember to enjoy our relationships. Remember to keep those in touch, keep those close to us.
Mm-hmm. And over the rest of the summer, anything else that you see as being kind of a highlight to be aware of as we watch this mystical dance going on in the heavens?
Well, I think that there's just a lot happening. I think that in terms of some of the planets I've paid attention to a lot are what Jupiter and Saturn are doing. We haven't touched on Saturn yet, but Saturn has been grinding right along through Sagittarius. And I say grinding because Sagittarius doesn't necessarily like the Saturnian energy so much. It's more of that freedom-loving kind of sign. And Saturn going through Sagittarius has been kind of like a shock to our systems, in that Saturn's been wanting us to slow down with that urge for freedom, and to really question, what is freedom? Is freedom being able to explore and travel the world, or is freedom being able to sit at home in your living room and know that you're connected to God? So.
Right, or just to be able to sit at home in your living room and not worry about it being becoming the center of conflict, I guess you could say. So, but yeah, Sagittarius definitely is the sign of the traveler, and Saturn is the sign of the teacher. So it's teaching us about, escapism, I think, and I think that's probably being reflected in a huge way with politics in America right now. Saturn is a major contributor to that. So how about Neptune in Capricorn? That's been the one that's slogging along for a long time here, and it's currently at about 18 degrees Capricorn retrograde and sextile to Neptune in Pisces. Both of them are retrograde. So illusion and Pluto's vulcanization, pulling things up from the depths. What are your thoughts about the current status of Pluto in everybody's chart right now?
Well, it's interesting, as we were just talking about the ideas around money with Taurus. Capricorn is also an earth sign and covers the topic of money, but Capricorn is not so much the material possession aspect of money as it is about the climb. It's about that social positioning and climbing the mountain, being able to work as a group, being able to consider everyone in the group as an equal member, sort of as the tribe, and we're all contributing the workload to one goal. And so Pluto is really metamorphosized all those ideas around social structure and around business and around, social positioning as well, and forcing us to deal with issues we've left under the, undercover.
Right. So as far as what people can expect in their own personal lives, with this kind of joyride going on in the skies, when do you see relief coming for people who really felt like they've been taxed to the limit, that they've been pushed to the edge, that sort of thing? Is there relief on the horizon?
That's a great question. I don't want to just give the answer that it is all really a matter of when you can stop resisting it and go along with it, but that is part of the answer. Another part of the answer is that I see with the Saturn in Sagittarius transit, the way it looks to me is that is not generally seen as a very comfortable transit. You can look at things going on with Saturn a lot of the time and see sort of our collective angst, because Saturn really likes to teach us to grow up. And in order to do that, we have to face the discomforts that we've been maybe neglecting. And so I think that once Saturn moves out of Sagittarius and into Capricorn, I think Saturn will feel more at home in Capricorn, since he's the ruler of Capricorn. Not to say there won't be challenges at that time, but I think that Sagittarius is really having a tough time with the Saturn placement. So I think by the end, this December 19th, I believe, of this year, Saturn will transition to Capricorn. So that should be a big moment for us.
Mm-hmm. And Jupiter will have already gone into Scorpio in October. So that should put a lot of attention on expanding relationships and friendships and that sort of thing. Is that correct?
Yeah, Jupiter going into Scorpio should be very interesting because, I mean, again, that's kind of an odd energy. Scorpio kind of rules over all the depths and the darker sides of things and the transformation. And Jupiter is a jovial planet and likes to bring about expansion and illumination. So when Jupiter changes over to Scorpio this October, that should be kind of like maybe like a kind of like a friendly kick in the butt kind of feeling.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Well, now, Stephen, if somebody wants to get in touch with you and have a discussion with you about their chart or somebody else's chart, where can they find you?
I'm available on Facebook Messenger if you want to reach out to me there. It might be the easiest way to reach me. You can also check out my website at stephen-hubble.com, and we're on commercial.
Well, actually, we're winding the show down, so get out there and check Stephen out.
Go ahead and check out my website if you want.
And we will be moving on. Another show next week. Have a great week. Get out there and have fun.
Sounds great.